There has been a lot of chatter around Celtic lately, and one of the topics that simply refuses to fade away involves Casper Schmeichel. Even though many supporters feel like this story has been talked about to exhaustion, it keeps finding new angles, especially after his latest television appearance. Over the past few days, he has popped up more than once on international broadcasts, and that alone has sparked discussion among fans who are not used to seeing a current Celtic player so visible in the media while still technically part of the squad. The most recent appearance came during coverage of a big European match, and viewers quickly noticed him on screen more than a few times, even standing close to one of the managers on the touchline at one moment. It created a strange feeling for some supporters, because normally when a player is still tied to the club, the focus remains firmly inside the football environment rather than on television panels. Part of the explanation is fairly straightforward. Schmeichel is currently dealing with injury issues, which means he is not available on the pitch, and because of his long career at the highest level, he is someone broadcasters like to bring in. He has Champions League experience, years in the Premier League, and a reputation that still carries weight across Europe. On top of that, his family connection in the world of punditry has also made him a familiar face on certain broadcasts. Still, many supporters expected clearer communication from the club about the whole situation. Over the last few days, the messaging has felt a bit scattered, and that has only added to the speculation around what exactly is going on behind the scenes. What caught attention as well was Schmeichel explaining why he decided to speak publicly now. According to him, there had been countless questions about his condition and people checking in to see how he was doing. In that sense, he felt it was better to address things directly rather than allow rumors to keep spreading. The reaction, he said, had been massive, with messages constantly coming through to his phone. It shows just how closely supporters follow every development when it involves a high-profile player connected to Celtic. Even when he is not playing, his presence still generates conversation. Not everyone has been entirely comfortable with how things have unfolded, though. Some former figures connected to the club have voiced concerns, particularly about the impression that the team itself has been pushed into the background during these media appearances. One criticism that stood out was the fact that Celtic were hardly mentioned while Schmeichel was discussing his situation on television. For some observers, that raised questions about priorities, especially at a time when the club is still battling through a demanding season and trying to keep momentum going in the league race. There is also the emotional side of this story, which supporters cannot ignore. Earlier in the season, there were moments where Schmeichel did not look completely happy, and cameras picked up a few reactions from him during tense situations around the club. Add to that the frustration of injuries and the pressure that comes with expectations at Celtic, and you begin to understand why there might be mixed feelings all around. Footballers are used to scrutiny, but when the discussion shifts away from performances on the pitch to speculation about their future, the atmosphere can quickly become complicated. Looking ahead, the big question now is what role, if any, Schmeichel will have around the squad in the coming months. Even if he cannot play, experienced players often remain an important voice inside the dressing room. Celtic have several leaders in that environment, and adding the perspective of someone who has won major titles and played on the biggest stages could still be valuable for younger players and the squad as a whole. Supporters have seen situations before where injured players stayed close to the team, traveling to matches, offering advice, and helping keep morale strong during crucial parts of the season. At the same time, there is another possibility that people are quietly considering. Sometimes when a player is nearing the end of a chapter with a club, the separation happens gradually and without much noise. That could mean fewer public appearances around the team and a more discreet path toward the next stage of his career. With the uncertainty around his physical condition and the surgery he is expected to undergo, there is no guarantee about what comes next for him as a professional footballer. That uncertainty alone has made supporters wonder whether we have already seen the last of him in a Celtic context on the pitch. While that conversation continues to roll on, another topic has started gaining attention among the fans, and it involves the future of the managerial position. One of the names that has been circulating in discussions is Roberto Martinez. At the moment, he is leading Portugal at international level, and his current deal runs through the period surrounding the upcoming World Cup. Recently, he was asked about what lies ahead for him, and his answer made it clear that his focus remains entirely on preparing the national team for the tournament. In his view, everything else can wait until that mission is complete. That response has been interpreted in different ways. Some supporters think it quietly closes the door on the possibility of him taking over at Celtic anytime soon, while others believe the situation could still change once the international calendar clears. The reality, however, is that timing plays a huge role in decisions like this. If a national team goes deep into a tournament, the coach remains fully committed until the final stages, and that could push any club negotiations far into the summer. For a club like Celtic, which usually wants its plans in place well before preseason really gets underway, that delay could be difficult to manage. When you look at how managerial appointments have happened in previous years, the pattern is quite clear. The club tends to move relatively early so the new manager has time to shape the squad, prepare training plans, and settle into the role before competitive matches return. With the next league season beginning not long after the World Cup concludes, the window for making a major appointment becomes tight. That is why many supporters believe the club will aim to finalize its decision earlier rather than waiting until the middle of summer. All of this leaves the door open for speculation around other candidates as well, and every week new names seem to appear in conversations among fans. Some are already working at clubs pushing for promotion, others are building reputations in different leagues, and a few have strong connections to people within the football world who know Celtic well. That mixture of possibilities has made the debate lively, with supporters constantly trying to read the clues about who might ultimately step into the role when the time comes. As the conversation continues to evolve, it becomes clearer that Celtic are approaching a period where every decision will carry significant weight, not just for the immediate future, but for the direction of the club over the next few years. When you start to look at the names being mentioned, there is a real mix of profiles, from managers who are deeply embedded in international football to those building their reputations at club level. Each option brings its own risks and potential rewards, and that is why the timing of any appointment feels just as important as the identity of the person chosen. With Roberto Martinez still fully focused on his commitments with Portugal, the practical side of things becomes difficult to ignore. International tournaments demand complete attention, and if his side progresses deep into the competition, he would not be available until very late in the summer. By that stage, Celtic would already need to have their preparations well underway. Preseason is not just about fitness. It is where tactical ideas are introduced, relationships within the squad are strengthened, and new signings are integrated into the system. Delaying that process could leave the team playing catch-up before the campaign has even properly started. That is why many supporters have started to shift their attention towards more realistic options, looking at managers who would be available at the right time and capable of stepping in without disruption. There is also the financial aspect to consider, as certain candidates come with higher wage demands, especially those currently working in leagues with significantly bigger budgets. Even if Celtic were interested, the overall package would need to make sense within the club's structure, and that alone can rule out some otherwise appealing names. Another factor that cannot be overlooked is the current situation of managers who are already competing at a high level with their clubs. If someone is pushing for promotion or achieving strong results, the incentive to leave mid-project is not always there. Stability can be a powerful motivator, particularly when a team is on the brink of something important. From Celtic's perspective, convincing such a manager to make the move would require not only a strong vision but also the right timing, which does not always align with the club's needs. This is where the conversation starts to circle back to names that perhaps were not initially at the forefront but have gradually gained traction. When a candidate is available, understands the demands of the game, and fits within the structure the club is trying to maintain, they naturally become more appealing as the decision point gets closer. It is not always about the biggest name. Sometimes it is about the best fit for the moment, and that is something Celtic have experienced before in both successful and challenging appointments. At the same time, there is an awareness among supporters that the club could still move in a completely unexpected direction. Football has a way of producing surprises, especially when decisions are made behind closed doors. A name that has barely been discussed publicly could suddenly emerge as the leading candidate, particularly if it aligns with the club's long-term strategy. That uncertainty keeps the debate alive, with every new piece of information being analyzed and interpreted in different ways. While all of this unfolds, the players and staff currently at the club are still focused on the task in front of them. The season is not over, and there is still a title to fight for, which means the dressing room environment remains crucial. Leadership within the squad becomes even more important during periods of uncertainty, as experienced figures help maintain focus and prevent distractions from affecting performances on the pitch. This is where the earlier discussion about Schmeichel ties back in, because even in his absence from the starting 11, the influence of a seasoned professional can still be felt. Supporters, of course, will continue to watch closely for any signs of what comes next. Whether it is a player returning to the stands, a new managerial link gaining strength, or subtle changes in how the club communicates, every detail feeds into the bigger picture. It is part of what makes following Celtic so intense, that constant sense that something is always developing just beneath the surface. And as the weeks move forward, those small developments will begin to form a clearer story about where the club is heading and how the next chapter is going to take shape. As that picture slowly starts to come into focus, there is also a growing sense that the club will be judged heavily on how it handles this transition period. Supporters have seen moments in the past where strong decisions have led to success, but they have also experienced times when uncertainty has created instability. That is why there is such a strong emphasis now on clarity, direction, and making sure that whoever comes in next is given the tools to succeed from day one. It is not just about reacting to the current situation. It is about setting a tone for what Celtic want to be moving forward. You can also feel that the players themselves are aware of everything happening around them, even if they are not directly involved in the speculation. Modern footballers are constantly connected to the outside world, and it is impossible to completely block out the noise. The key, as always, is how they respond to it. Teams that manage to stay focused during uncertain periods often come out stronger, and that resilience can make a massive difference when the pressure begins to rise in the closing stages of a season. There is also a sense that the supporters are looking for reassurance, not necessarily through big statements, but through consistent actions. Whether that comes in the form of clearer communication, visible unity within the squad, or simply strong performances on the pitch, all of it contributes to rebuilding confidence. Celtic have always thrived when there is a strong connection between the team and the fans, and maintaining that bond becomes even more important when questions are being asked about the future. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. A whisper has been gathering pace across Glasgow, the sort that starts as a murmur in the stands and grows into a roar before anyone can quite pin down its source. Now, it's impossible to ignore. Celtic, it said, are preparing a move that could reshape the balance of power, not just domestically, but far beyond. The figure being floated is staggering, 14 million, a sum that signals intent as much as ambition. Within the corridors of Parkhead, there's a sense that something bold is brewing. Those close to the club hint at a player currently lighting up the Spanish game, a talent with flair, composure, and the kind of attacking instinct that turns tight matches on their head. While no name has been confirmed, the profile is clear, creative, fearless, and ready for a bigger stage. Supporters, of course, have taken to speculation with gusto. Social media hums with clips, guesses, and hopeful declarations. Some believe this could be the marquee signing that defines a new era, a statement that Celtic are not content with standing still. Others urge caution, mindful of the pressures that come with such a price tag. Still, the narrative is irresistible. 14 million doesn't just buy a player. It buys expectation, excitement, and the promise of something different. For a club steeped in history, yet always looking forward, the idea of bringing a Spanish star into the fold carries a certain romance. For now, it remains just beyond confirmation, living in that space between rumor and reality. But in Glasgow, that's often where the most compelling stories begin. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.